Damn. 4 paradoxes that will blow your mind. This was not what I was expecting. I like paradoxes. Actually, I love them. Because there's something fascinating about watching people try to solve a problem that, by definition, cannot be solved. It's logic fighting itself. But here's the thing. I'm going to explain these paradoxes, along with their possible solutions. Or maybe not. Let's get into it. Now let's look at the unstoppable force paradox. Imagine an unstoppable force, something that cannot be stopped, no matter what. Now imagine an immovable object, something that cannot be moved, no matter what. Both ideas make sense on their own, but now put them together. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? If the force moves the object, then the object was never immovable. But if the object doesn't move, then the force was never unstoppable. Either outcome breaks one of the definitions. So the problem isn't the force, and it isn't the object. The problem is that both cannot exist at the same time. They are defined in a way that makes their interaction impossible. It's a paradox created by language, by absolute terms. Once something is defined as unstoppable or immovable, there's no room left for reality to step in. And that's why this question doesn't have an answer. Not because we don't know enough physics, but because the scenario itself can't exist. Let's end with the ship of Theseus. Imagine a ship, a very old ship. Over time, parts of it start to wear out. So one by one, each piece gets replaced. A new plank here, a new mast there. Eventually, every single part of the ship has been replaced. Now comes the question, is it still the same ship? Most people hesitate, but many would say yes. It's the same ship, just repaired over time. But here's where it gets interesting. What if someone took all the original parts, the old planks, the old mast, and rebuilt the ship somewhere else? Now there are 2 ships. One with all new parts, and one made entirely from the original ones. So which one is the real ship of Theseus? The repaired one, or the rebuilt one? Both have a valid claim. And that's the problem. At what point does something stop being itself? Is it the material, the structure, or the continuity over time? This paradox isn't really about a ship. It's about identity, about objects, about people, about change. And it forces a simple question that turns out to be very hard to answer. When everything changes, what stays the same? Now let's talk about the barber paradox. Imagine a city where there is only one barber, and there is a strict law. The barber is only allowed to cut the hair of people who cannot cut their own hair. No exceptions. If someone can cut their own hair, the barber is not allowed to cut it. If someone cannot cut their own hair, the barber must cut it. So far, everything makes sense. Now comes the problem. The barber himself lives in that city, and at some point, his hair needs to be cut. So we ask a simple question. Who cuts the barber's hair? If the barber cuts his own hair, then he is someone who can cut his own hair, which means, by law, he is not allowed to cut it. But if the barber does not cut his own hair, then he is someone who cannot cut his own hair, which means by law, he must cut it. Both options break the rule. No matter what you choose, the law contradicts itself. The barber cannot exist under the rules of his own job. A perfectly logical rule that creates an impossible situation. This paradox has survived for centuries without a clear answer. When does a pile of sand actually become a pile? At first glance, we all know a pile of sand when we see one. But what about a single grain? What about 2? If we have 1,000,000 grains, we call it a pile. And if we remove 1 grain, it's still a pile. But if you take 3 grains and add 1 more, that doesn't suddenly turn it into a pile. So where is the line? And this problem doesn't stop with sand. We can apply it to humans. When does a human become a human? Is it a baby? An embryo? Or just an egg and a sperm separated? The question stays the same. At what exact point does the change happen? This mental trap was first described over 2,000 years ago by the Greek philosopher Eubulides of Miletus, and it's known as the Sorites paradox. And to this day, no one has solved it. If these paradoxes messed with your head, that's the point. Paradoxes exist to break the way you think. And the crazy part is, these aren't just ideas. They expose real limits in logic. So now I want to know, which paradox got you the most? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, subscribe, because the next video is going to be even worse.